in for Chris.
Hey everybody, I'm Brian Enton filling in for Chris Cuomo tonight. We start with breaking news from across the pond. Princess Kate announced today that she will make her first public appearance since Christmas of last year. After much speculation, even conspiracy theories about her whereabouts, this past March, she finally revealed that she was undergoing treatment for an undisclosed form of cancer. Now, this has had a worldwide effect, especially since King Charles has just announced his cancer diagnosis. Now, we also know the family was dealing with a very, very public breakup with Prince William's brother Harry. There's been a lot going on with the royal family. Well, today, Princess Kate addressed her 16 million followers on Instagram, sharing really a very beautiful new photo of herself and an update on her treatment. And this is what she wrote. She wrote, I have been blown away by all the kind messages of support and encouragement over the last couple of months. It really has made the world of difference to William and me and has helped us both through some of the hardest times. I am making good progress, but as anyone going through chemotherapy will know, there are good days and bad days. On those bad days, you feel weak, tired, and you have to give in to your body resting. But on the good days, when you feel stronger, you want the most of feeling well. My treatment is ongoing and will be for a few more months. On the days I feel well enough, it is a joy to engage with school life, spend personal time on the things that give me energy and positivity, as well as starting to do a little work from home. I'm looking forward to attending the King's birthday parade this weekend with my family and hope to join a few public engagements over the summer, but equally knowing I am not out of the woods yet. I am learning how to be patient, especially with uncertainty, taking each day as it comes, listening to my body, and allowing myself to take this much-needed time to heal. Thank you so much for your continued understanding, and to all of you who have so bravely shared your stories with me, and it was signed C. So why has the princess decided to come back to the public eye right now? What is significant about doing it at this event tomorrow? Because there is something very special about it. I want to bring in royal commentator Victoria Arbiter and Rob Shooter, who worked for the royal family and host podcast Naughty But Nice. And we've also got tonight world-renowned oncologist Dr. Ranjana Srivastava with us. We appreciate all three of you for being here. All right, Doctor, I want to start with you because you work with cancer patients every day. Should we take the fact that Princess Kate is going out in public for the first time as a very, very good sign, considering that she is still on chemotherapy, Doctor?
Thank you for having me on. I actually think it's a very generous move on her part to show off herself to the public at a very difficult time. I found the statement very honest and moving. And as many of my patients say, it's very difficult to sometimes get out of bed, let alone come out under such public scrutiny. So I think, she obviously has her reasons for doing so, love and devotion to her family, wanting to show us that she is well. But I think we should make no mistake that this would be a very high-stakes appearance for her.
Doctor, a lot of people have been speculating about what kind of cancer she has because she hasn't come out and said outright what it is. Now, look, she's got her own privacy. I mean, we don't have to know. I mean, she's obviously in a very, very public role, but, there's a lot of speculation out there, Doctor. People want to know.
And I think, and I've said this before, I think it's particularly unhelpful to her and to other cancer patients who may be reminded about the speculation about their illness. My general sense is that when people are ready, they tell us what they feel we need to know. And I think we should respect her privacy because the speculation is endless, right? If one person speculates about her diagnosis and what sort of treatment she's having, then that leads to other speculation. And I think it's just unhelpful. It's unhelpful to her recovery. And I don't think that it adds anything to our ability to help other people who are going through a process which is grueling enough as it is.
Yeah, and you think about what she went through when that first video was released, when she was sitting on the bench and people were just nitpicking it to death, saying that it was AI. So she's obviously been through a lot since all of this began. Rob, it's been almost a full 6 months since her last official public appearance. Do you think that this has been planned for a while in terms of her coming out tomorrow? Was this part of a bigger plan, or was it a last-minute decision based on what you know?
No, this was not last minute at all. We actually had rumours about this a couple of weeks ago. There were some rumours bubbling up in London that she might indeed attend tomorrow. What I'm told is that two different plans were made. A plan to have Kate there and a plan in case she wasn't able to make it. And they literally didn't decide which plan they were going to go with until today, when Kate herself made the decision. She's not being pushed into this. The king is not demanding that she go. Her husband's not bullying her. This was Kate's decision, and she's decided she wants to be there tomorrow, and everybody is thrilled that they're going to get to see Kate.
Victoria, what is significant about this event tomorrow? And I know it's a parade. Does that mean she would have to walk in the parade, or are there floats in this parade? Can she just sort of wave from a balcony? Break that down for us.
There are a number of different components to Trooping the Colour. It's marked the official sovereign's birthday since 1748 in the reign of King George II. And at its core, it is a military parade, dripping in pomp and pageantry. But it's a very special occasion, and it is a set-piece event for members of the royal family. This really is a firm fixture in the diary. And really, the day is an opportunity for the Household Division, which is made up of the Foot Guards, the Household Cavalry and the King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery, an opportunity to pay tribute to their Commander-in-Chief, in this case, King Charles III. But it's also an opportunity for members of the royal family to recognise those operational soldiers, many of whom have served with distinction in campaigns around the world, an opportunity to really celebrate their achievements. And it's a ceremonial role that they take very seriously indeed, and it's one they're very proud to take part in. Tomorrow, it's the turn of the Irish Guards. The regiments take it in turns each year to troop their colour. And I think it's particularly poignant that the Princess of Wales will be there to watch the parade, because she is Colonel of the Irish Guards. It's a role she took up last year. So I think the reason she's going to be there is, on the one hand, yes, it's about paying tribute to the King. It's also a safe environment in which for her to dip her toe back into public life. But at her core, yes, she's a future queen, but she is a family girl. Family means everything to her. And so it's really going to be special to see her on the balcony alongside the King and the Queen, but also riding in a carriage along the Mall with her three children, who are always a crowd pleaser. So we're hoping that she is indeed going to be feeling well enough to attend tomorrow, but at the moment, all signs point to her being there.
Yeah, and Doctor, tell us what she may be going through in terms of undergoing chemo. I mean, the fact that, it could change at the last moment in terms of if she feels well enough to actually be out there at the parade.
I mean, for most patients, chemotherapy is a grueling experience. There are days when you are just weak and tired, and things do change quite quickly. For many people, it is an effort to get out of bed and get dressed and go and get the milk and the bread, let alone attend a public parade. But there are also many good days and good weeks that people have during chemotherapy, as the Princess has explained, where you feel able to do a few things and where you want to engage in sort of a spirited way with the world. And I think the key thing is that these things do change quite quickly, and you might wake up and not feel as good as you thought you were going to feel, or you might feel surprisingly better. So I think we just need to be very forgiving of people who try to attempt to come to weddings and graduations and parades and so on, and just credit them for their generosity, but not have too many more expectations.
Yeah, and look, we all have people in our family or friends who have been in this situation, who have been undergoing chemo, and it can change at the last second depending on how they feel. Rob, I want to talk about the photo, though, of Princess Kate. It was just such a beautiful photo that was put out on Instagram along with the statement that we read. Do we know anything about the photo, Rob? Was it taken recently? Is it a brand new photo? Is it an older photo? Because a lot of people are just mesmerized by it and thinking, gosh, this doesn't look like someone who's sick.
Right, it looks beautiful, doesn't it? So I think the photograph was taken in the grounds of Windsor. We're told it was in the last week or so. So it's a new photograph. Now, we do know that Kate is a really keen amateur photographer herself, so she certainly knows how to do a great composition. She understands the light very well. But I think what touched me so much about this photograph is not just seeing Kate look so well, but also there was a sentence in this really personal statement that she put out that she normally doesn't get this personal, but she said she's not out of the woods yet. And where is the photograph taken? Literally of her in the woods. Very clever, very, very poignant, a beautiful way to bring Kate back into the public discussion.
Yeah, that's a good point. Victoria, do we know how King Charles is doing? Because he's also announced that he has cancer and is undergoing treatment, and he also hasn't said the type of cancer, but have there been any updates on that front?
Well, he's certainly been very keen to fulfill a full royal schedule. Again, he was in France for the D-Day commemorations, which will have been hugely important to him. And we have a busy June coming up because, of course, tomorrow does mark the start to the royal season, if you will. We've got the Garter Day ceremony taking place on Monday. Then we have Royal Ascot. And later this month, Prince William turns 42. So there are personal milestones as well. But I think the King certainly will have earned his summer break, which is going to come later on this summer. But I think he's just desperate to be doing the role for which he was crowned last May of last year. It's a job that he loves. It is a job that he is committed to. And I think he's very keen to reassure the British public. It was really quite rattling that so soon after his mother passed away, it wasn't just him who was diagnosed with cancer. It was his daughter-in-law as well. And so I think tomorrow is going to be all about offering reassurance. And I think given the dodgy British weather, it's going to be a pretty horrible day tomorrow, but Kate is certainly going to be offering the sunshine, and the King is said to be delighted that she will be there in attendance by his side.
Yeah, I think everyone will be excited to see her. Back to that photo, though, I was curious, Doctor, because I think a lot of people assume when you hear chemotherapy that you are going to lose all of your hair, and I know that's not always the case, but I think that's something that comes to mind with people when they see that with that photo.
Yeah, look, it's a gorgeous photo. I was struck by the greenery and I suppose the signal and the statement of renewal, isn't it? But yes, I think that if you ask many of my patients, they would say that they don't look like that on a day-to-day basis, and they wish they looked like that. I think this is obviously a photo that is meant to go out to millions of people. It needs to send a signal, but we do need to be careful about the fact that people tend not to look like that when they're having chemotherapy.
Yeah, I did kind of wonder about that, Doc. You know, again, everybody knows someone who's gone through that. Everyone's had a relative, and unfortunately, you were looking at this beautiful photo. That's not what it really looks like most of the time.
On the other hand, to answer your question, not everybody loses their hair on chemotherapy. It depends on what treatment she is having. And it's great to see people look well through chemotherapy, and we wish that for all our patients. So I certainly don't mean to detract from how good the picture looks and how well she looks and hopefully feels inside.
Yeah, no, and I don't either, because obviously everybody just wants her to look and feel the best. But I have wondered, Rob, I mean, do you think they would ever put out a more sort of realistic photo of what life is like going through what she's going through?
No, it's just not the way that they do stuff. I'm quite surprised that we got the statement we got today. I'm surprised that we got this new photograph. They've been really slow to adapt. And I get that. It's a very old institution. A lot of people that are working in there are still from a generation that did not really have social media. And so they've always been slow about this. And let's remember, too, Kate, for being one of the most famous people in the world, is still a very private human being. She only lets you in so much, and I don't think that is going to change.
What do you think, Victoria? I mean, do you agree? Do you think they would ever put out a photo that's, you know, a little more realistic to what she's actually going through?
Well, we don't know what she's actually going through. She has been very keen to say that through her treatment, she has found strength and positivity in the things that she likes to do. And one of those things is being out in nature. She said to find that very healing. But I think what was a very smart move with this particular picture is that she knows tomorrow is all about the king. She doesn't want to overshadow the king. The king doesn't worry about that kind of stuff anymore. But I think by issuing a picture, what they have done is help quell a lot of the chatter that would have just been so apparent tomorrow. Because, of course, all anyone wants to talk about is how is she looking? Does she look like she's got cancer? Is she holding up? People are looking for clues any which way they can find them. And so I think by issuing this picture today, we've all been able to talk about how well she looks. We have a better expectation of how she's going to be at the parade tomorrow. She will be wearing a hat. What kind of hat, we have yet to see. But I think it was a good way to just quell a lot of the noise that is going to surface tomorrow, because it is her first appearance in public since Christmas Day. I don't think we will see any more photographs in the immediate future, but she has made it clear that she's hoping to attend some public engagements over the summer. Wimbledon is a big draw for her, so hopefully we'll see her there if indeed she's feeling well enough a few weeks from now.
We'll see how tomorrow plays out. Hopefully she feels well enough. And again, all of us obviously wish her the absolute best. Dr. Srivastava, Victoria Arbiter, and Rob Shooter, thank you all so much for coming on. We appreciate it.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Okay, still to come tonight, Donald Trump has made it very clear that he believes in what he calls illegal aliens. But does the former president believe in actual aliens? What Donald Trump told Logan Paul in a recent podcast may have you seeing the stars. It was actually quite interesting, and they talked about it for quite a bit of time. We're going to play it for you and talk about it coming up next. All right, we all know that Donald Trump has said some far-out things, but what does he think of UFOs and the chance that there is life on other planets? On a podcast that dropped with internet sensation fighter Logan Paul, the former president turned some heads with the comments that he made about the possibility of alien life. Take a look at this.
I've met with pilots like beautiful Tom Cruise, but taller, okay? Yeah. Handsome, perfect people. Sir, there was something there that was round in form and going like 4 times faster than my super jet fighter plane. And I look at these guys, and they really mean it. Yeah. And am I a believer? No, I can't say I am. But I have met with people that are serious people that say there's some really strange things that they see flying around out there.
I was in bed last night watching this interview. I couldn't turn it off. I watched the whole thing. I want to bring in Nick Pope. He spent 2 decades investigating UFOs for the UK Ministry of Defense. Nick, it's always good to see you. You know, I was sitting here thinking, watching this now for the second time, that it was just a couple of years ago that the official U.S. government line was nothing to see here, no way there's UFOs, why are people even talking about this? Now you've got the former president saying, you know, that he had these briefings, that people came into him, smart people, respectable people, and told him about sightings. I mean, it's come quite a ways.
It's a complete narrative flip, absolutely. As you say, a few years ago, the official line was, nobody's interested in this and we don't have a program. Now we learn that there was this presidential briefing. Well, I think everyone would like to know, when did this take place? Who was there? What was said? And are any of the minutes from this meeting or briefing available? Because that would be very interesting to see for sure.
Yeah, and this conversation went on for about 10 minutes of the podcast. I want to play you another clip, Nick, and then we'll talk about it on the other side.
Sure. Is there a chance that one of these orgs is potentially hiding information from you about aliens?
And you do have a deep state. And certainly they could, but I don't think on this subject. And I know there are illegal aliens out there, but those are the ones that come through the border. We have plenty of that. It's very possible that there is something. And why wouldn't there be? You know, you take a look at the universe and you see all of the different planets, and you see this, you know, look, here we are on one relatively small planet. Why wouldn't there be on a planet that's 400 times the size. Why wouldn't there be somebody?
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting, Nick, that in one breath he's saying that he's really not a believer, but then spent most of the time talking about the reputable people who have come forward to him with stories and things that they have seen, and talking about how vast the universe is. It's almost like he said he didn't believe, but then was trying to prove the other side.
Yes, exactly. And I think in many ways it was quite an odd interview. And, another thing that's kind of odd about it is it's not the first time presidents have been asked about this issue. It comes up, very often on chat shows. And what's interesting is presidents usually play it for laughs. And I've seen Obama on one hand and George W. Bush on the other play it in almost a comedic way. Yet Trump, the person who you might think would be the rebel and would play it for laughs, actually played it quite straight, which really did give me pause for thought. And his reference to the deep state was interesting. Of course, that speaks to one of his populist kind of issues. But again, it makes you wonder if he's elected a second time around, what's he going to do on this question? Where's he going to stand on it?
Well, yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I mean, we saw the briefings, the public briefings for the first time in quite some time, with Congress that came after our NewsNation story with the whistleblower David Grush. But if Trump was reelected, perhaps, and this is something that more and more people are talking about on the right and left, perhaps he would push along, more disclosure, more, of these confidential documents to be released. Do you think that could happen?
Yes, I do. And it's interesting, of course, he talked about releasing some of the JFK documents and then didn't, but now is apparently rethinking that. And again, a president in their second term is always much less constrained. So if there is something tangible to disclose, a second Trump term might just be when it happens. But it also, this interview that we're watching and some of the things going on in Congress set us up very nicely for the presidential debates, assuming they go ahead. But will we get a UFO question? And could UFOs turn out to be the ultimate October surprise?
Yeah, I was wondering if there was going to be a UFO question in some of the primary debates. So we'll see if it comes now that we're into the general election. Last thing, Nick, you mentioned deep state. And obviously, like you said, Trump has his own reasons for bringing that up. But back to David Grush, the whistleblower, I mean, that's the point that he's been making all along, that there are these secret government programs that even the president wouldn't know about. And here you've got a former president saying, yeah, they might actually exist.
Exactly. And usually you would think Trump is pretty sort of strong and proud on this. Normally, his line on pretty much everything is, yeah, I'm briefed on all of this. I'm fully across everything that's happening. Here, he sounded almost thoughtful and wondered whether there wasn't something. So again, all of this was extremely interesting and I think sets things up for a very interesting presidential campaign.
Yeah, it is going to be interesting. Nick Pope, it's always nice to see you. Thanks for coming on a Friday night. I hope you have a good weekend.
Thank you. You too.
Okay, coming up next, today was day 25 in the Karen Reed murder trial. If you haven't heard of this one, it is crazy. She's accused of backing up her SUV, running over her cop boyfriend, leaving him to die. Her defense has been that she has been framed by the police, who she says actually killed him. The trial has been wild. We'll take you inside what went down in the courtroom, and some of it got so ugly, you're going to want to tell the kids to leave the room. Oh, some of these text messages they read. Some of it's sick. We'll get into it next. Cold-blooded killer or victim of a cover-up. Today was day 25 of the Karen Reed murder trial in Massachusetts. 44-year-old Reed accused of second-degree murder in the death of her boyfriend, Boston police officer John O'Keefe, who was found unresponsive in the front yard of another officer's home in January of 2022, where Reed told first responders that she had dropped him off after a night of drinking. They were going to an after party, and that's when all this began. The prosecution alleges Karen Reed backed her SUV into Officer O'Keefe and then ran him over, leaving him to die in the snow. Her defense is that the police are framing her for murder. Her defense says Officer O'Keefe was ambushed and beaten at a house party that was full of cops and also bitten by a German shepherd, eventually being dragged outside and left to die out in the cold and snow. Well, today, a second juror was let go, and a forensics expert and crash reconstructionist took the stand for the prosecution. It is a very, very complicated case, but it's a wild case. I want to bring in former FBI agent and NewsNation law and justice contributor Jennifer Coffendorfer, criminal trial attorney and NewsNation legal analyst Sarah Azari, and Florida prosecutor Dave Ehrenberg. I mean, this is like all my buddies on tonight on a Friday night. These are all my real friends here. This is great. But Jennifer, I want to start with you. First of all, this case is like people, I don't even know how to describe it on social media. They are like enraged on both sides, and you get a lot of the anger because you've been very active with your opinions about it. But today, forensics expert on the stand, she did an analysis of Jennifer McCabe's phone. Explain why that is so important to the case.
Yeah, it's so important, Brian, because at the crux of this conspiracy was a supposed Google search that took place at 2:27 a.m. Only the issue is it did not take place at this time. This forensic analyst with bona fides that were quite impressive explained that no, that's when the Safari was opened, when she was actually Googling about basketball scores because she's a basketball coach. And indeed, it opened at 2:27, but that search took place at 6:24 in the morning at the behest of Karen Reed. So it kind of just blew apart this conspiracy theory.
Yeah, and this is an important part of the defense because they have been saying that the search was done and the search was how long to die in the cold, and that it was someone in the house who searched. Jennifer McCabe is the woman's name, and now there's some questions about what time that really happened. Sarah, was this a big loss for the prosecution, would you say?
No, because I wouldn't even call this a jab, let alone a blow. You have to remember that the defense, we're just seeing one side of the case here, which is the prosecution's case. The defense can bring in its own forensic expert to challenge what this forensic expert said. So we haven't yet gone there. And also this is, like you said, Brian, in your setup, this is just one piece of the defense. The bigger piece is that very bold promise that Alan Jackson made in his opening statement, which is that Karen Reed was framed. Now, I've actually worked with Alan Jackson. I had cases with him when he was an LADA, and also on the same side, on the defense side. There is no finer defense attorney than him around. I don't want to say no finer, but he's one of the best, And so for him to say that Karen Reed was framed, I hope that he's got the goods. I think he's got the goods. But I think, where the prosecution has really left a hole here is the pathology. And I just keep thinking, if the pathology and the medical examiner were strong evidence here, why not put them up first? Instead, they've gone through all of this testimony about Karen Reed being the killer and not somebody else, sort of trying to challenge the conspiracy theory idea. But we need that medical examiner to make a case about the cause of death. That really is key here.
There was this other really fascinating moment within this week. It was earlier this week. It was State Trooper Michael Proctor, lead investigator in the case, actually read out loud in court some of these lewd texts that he had texted about Karen Reed, the defendant, saying that he wanted her to die. He made fun of her medical condition she had, implied he had searched for nudes on her phone, called her some really vulgar names. Some of it was even hard to listen to. Take a listen to this clip.
Yes, sir.
Read from those, sir.
Yep, so these came from me. From all accounts, he didn't do anything wrong. She's a whack job. CUN.
Objection.
So don't spell it. You have to. So these are your words, Trooper Proctor?
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead and say them.
Yes, she's a babe. Weird Fall River accent, though. The rest of the unprofessional and regrettable comments are something I'm not proud of, and I shouldn't have wrote in a private or any type of setting.
So, Dave, I mean, how much do you think this may have hurt the prosecution's case? Because let's not forget, you've now got 9, I think the count is, 9 women on the jury, and now you've got this trooper up there talking about all the awful names that he called the defendant in text messages. I mean, that can't be good.
Not good, Brian. Proctor was a terrible witness. He's the lead investigator. He has not even been fired to this day. He's hardly been disciplined, and that's a problem for the prosecution. It would have been better if he had been fired and they could divorce themselves from this guy. But the defense has done a good job putting him on trial. Instead of their own client being on trial with her issues, they're focusing attention on this guy, Proctor. And remember what happened with Mark Furman in the O.J. Simpson case? They put him on trial and they got an acquittal. So that's my fear. But the defense also has to show a bit of this crazy conspiracy they're saying, which is that he, meaning O'Keefe, was beaten up and killed in the house, or at least beaten to a pulp in the house, and then thrown out on the front lawn? Why would the cops do that inside the house? Why wouldn't they claim self-defense or throw his body in the woods? It doesn't make sense, and I think that's where the defense may have bitten off more than they can chew.
Yeah, and I mean, when you go through the evidence found outside the house, it does seem overwhelming, and I want to walk you through this. There's the taillight on the car that is cracked, glass he took from the bar broken in snow, straw from glass near him, taillight embedded in his shirt, his hair on the car bumper. So her taillight is cracked, which you can see there, and the pieces of the car and the taillight were embedded in him. Jennifer, isn't that slam dunk evidence?
It's great forensic evidence, and the forensic part of this case is rock solid. And this is why it's so important, because it is divorced completely from Proctor. Proctor did not get that original evidence of the taillight. Proctor didn't gather up the glass. He didn't find the straw. Proctor didn't make or even be involved in any of the digital analysis. Karen Reed called at 5 o'clock in the morning, Carrie, a good friend of John O'Keefe's, and said, John O'Keefe is dead. And that was before he had even been found. She made spontaneous utterances on the scene. I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. Proctor didn't hear any of those. Multiple other witnesses did. The problem is there's too much evidence that has nothing to do with Proctor that seals this case.
Yeah, and Sarah, I mean, if the cover-up is true, and that's what the defense is trying to say, there would have to be so many people involved. I mean, you've got crime scene investigators, and how the heck would the pieces of the taillight have ended up embedded in him? That would have all been part of the conspiracy? Someone would have gone and done that? I mean, are we really supposed to believe that?
I mean, look, like I said, I think what we're hearing is the prosecution's case. We need to see what the defense comes with in terms of experts and forensics to challenge what Jennifer is qualifying as rock solid forensics. Nothing is rock solid when it's just one-sided. With respect to the evidence from the taillights, around and the hair on the bumper. I mean, the world's most stubborn hair that just doesn't fall off the car after all these miles that are driven. It makes no sense. And so we have to put it in the context of the defense theory, which is she was framed. And so if she was framed, then a lot of this was planted. And to Dave's point about Proctor's testimony, setting aside all the vulgar and just the disparaging, disgusting things he said, it really establishes bias. It really shows that he just decided that it was Karen Reed who killed John O'Keefe and nobody else. And so even if they moved past his, oops, I was joking, nothing funny about this, there's still this idea that this guy zeroed in on Karen Reed and did a shoddy investigation.
But Dave, correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't Karen Reed initially tell investigators that she hit John O'Keefe? Wasn't that something that she initially confessed to?
Yes, she said, I hit him, although the defense is saying that it was formed in the form of a question. I hit him? But there's a reason why she thought she hit him, is because the theory is, at least I believe, is that she hit him unintentionally. She was totally drunk, so was O'Keefe, and she backed out. I think she hit him. And then later on, she came back in the same car she used to hit him and then searched for him and was able to find him, where two other people she was in the car with could not find him. The snow was burying the body, but she knew where it was and where he was. And I think they've got enough evidence to at least show the lesser charge of an unintentional killing, a manslaughter, as opposed to murder. I think murder is too much to ask for here. And we'll see what the defense says. But in the end, I think the defense still has to show some sort of a grand conspiracy. And Brian, I'll leave you with this. Mark Twain once said that two people can keep a secret if one of them is dead. So I don't think that culture of silence could exist here.
Yeah, it does seem hard to imagine, but I'll tell you, I mean, you're on Twitter, Dave. There is an army of people who believe that Karen Read is innocent. And there's a lot of mistrust of the police and public corruption in that area, and I think that sort of fueled this. So it's been fascinating to watch online, and we're now on day 25 of the trial? Yeah, day 25, so we'll see where it goes. Jennifer Konfidoffer, Sarah Azari, Dave Ehrenberg, my buddies, have a good weekend. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
Okay, coming up next, we keep hearing about bird flu and that we humans are not really in any danger. But recent reports suggest it's time to start taking it more seriously, and there could be a lot more to it. The former CDC director during the COVID pandemic is raising a red flag, saying bird flu could very well be the next pandemic and possibly even worse than COVID. We've got it next. Could we be on the verge of another pandemic, and one that could be even worse than the one caused by coronavirus? This time it could actually be bird flu. Let's hope not. The CDC is now calling for more testing for bird flu at America's farms, sounding alarms after several farm workers contracted the disease from animals. Since 2003, there have been 888 confirmed human cases worldwide. That's according to the CDC. But here's the scary part. Half of those patients died from the disease. Compare that to COVID, in which just 0.6% of people who tested positive actually died. The fear now is that the bird flu is changing, adapting, and could spread to not just birds, but also cattle and pigs, and then eventually spread from human to human. Former CDC Director Robert Redfield, who helped oversee our country's response to COVID, says it is definitely time to take this more seriously. And Dr. Redfield joins me live now. It's always nice to see you, Doctor. I remember you told Chris not long ago that the bird flu could make COVID look like a little pandemic, which was quite alarming. I mean, is that really the case?
Yes, Brian, I really do think it's very likely that we will at some time, it's not a question of if, it's more of a question of when, we will have a bird flu pandemic. And as you mentioned, unfortunately, bird flu has, when it does enter humans, has a significant mortality. Probably somewhere between 25 and 50% mortality. So it's going to be quite complicated. Since 2019, we've had a progressive increase in bird flu in chickens and ducks and turkeys in our country. And since then, you've seen it now go into a number of mammals. It's now in over 25 different mammals. I think now with the llamas recently, it's now in 27 mammals in the United States. Why is that important? Is we know exactly what has to happen for bird flu to be infectious for humans and go human to human. Scientists in 2012 actually did experiments in the lab using gain-of-function research, which I'm not in favor of, but the scientists did it, and they figured the 5 amino acids that have to change in a key receptor in order for bird flu to gain a propensity to bind to the human receptor and then be able to go human to human. Something that obviously happened with COVID, where COVID obviously learned how to use the ACE2 receptor in humans and then, of course, became a very infectious virus. Those 5 amino acids, so that's a huge...
So I was just wondering if it's going to go, if it does, hopefully it won't. If it goes human to human, though, is it like COVID where if you cough, someone else can get it? Is that how it spreads, or does it spread a different way?
No, it's likely to spread through aerosol and droplets is how it's going to eventually spread. And once the virus gains the ability to attach to the human receptor, and then go human to human, that's when you're going to have the pandemic. And as I said, I think it's just a matter of time. Normally, the 5 amino acid changes is a huge species barrier. So who knows how long that will take. But as it goes into more and more different mammals, it's changing its use of receptors. It's changing. It's learning how to use different receptors for dolphins and seals. And it's learning how to use receptors in bears and polar bears and foxes and raccoons and cats. So it's going through a lot of changes, and as it picks up some of these new receptors, it can get closer and closer to humans. Recently in cattle, where it was recently described and now is in a significant number of cattle in the United States, I'm concerned about that because cattle live close to pigs, and a lot of times in flu, there's been a relationship of flu going from pigs to humans as it's trying to evolve and gaining the receptor.